Irma was trying to write one program when something went wrong. Here she is lying, and a werewolf guy is inducing her into mating games. What's going on? He is trying to justify himself for inducing sex, but he is in rut. In excitement, he squeezed her throat so hard, her thoughts were confused. But she croaked that in any case she would not marry him. Irma not only found herself in the world of trappers, having been reborn in the 21st century into the body of a werewolf girl, but also inherited the memory of the previous owner along with her body. How many times did she try to commit suicide, wanted to hang herself, drown herself? The other girls of the tribe laughed at her loudly, and what kind of male would even look at this laughing? Mia was especially zealous. She bullied our heroine more than others, calling her so pathetic that it was easier to pretend to be dead than to look at her. How many times this month had she already tried to kill herself? The werewolf girls talked among themselves, but even they soon got bored with it. Irma could not die. Even with fly agarics, it didn't work. No matter how much I chewed, death did not come. Why does she need this life? This is a mockery of fate, who she was before and who she has become now. Irma was furious. Anger and rage rolled over her. In the 21st century, she was a cool programmer, and who is she now, stuck in the body of some beast maker? Her head was pounding. She was going crazy. The old self of her previous personality was mixed with the feelings and instincts of the former owner of this body. At this time, they looked into the room and the girl pleadingly asked Irma to stop Ricky because he was about to go to the lands of God's punishment. She jumped on the bed, saying that where he was going to the lands of God's punishment. These lands are a place of redemption for all trappers who have committed misdeeds, and the ice spirit flower grows there. If someone manages to get it, the god beast will forgive Dada the most monstrous mistake. But this place is very dangerous. Almost no one returns from there. Everyone tried to dissuade Ricky from going there. He doesn't have any sins that need to be atoned for. It's all Irma's fault. The elder also persuaded the best warrior of the tribe to stay. Irma is a healthy female, so why shouldn't he marry her? He said that he didn't want to listen to rumors about marriage, as Irma appeared, declaring that who was sending him to these lands, or what. What a face he has, the girl thought. It's no wonder that the previous owner of her body tried to commit suicide because of him. Sia jumped out and attacked Irma and began accusing her of almost causing Ricky to die. The girl firmly grabbed the accuser's hand and threateningly declared what right she had to interfere in her relationship with Ricky. Mia struggled and demanded that she be released immediately. Mia's friend intervened. Calming the girl, she accused Irma of depriving Mia of a male. She had gone too far, and now she still dares to open her mouth. But our heroine was not at a loss and fought back, saying since when did her male have anything to do with Mia? She felt an unprecedented surge of strength, feminine charm, and a fusion of mind with a new body. Mia's friend Sophie continued to accuse Irma of dishonesty, but not a single male would contact her. They were interrupted by the elder of the tribe, ordering them to stop, but Irma must convince Ricky to go to these lands. But the guy asked not to interfere, saying that he still would not marry Irma. What did the girl challenge him to, and who said that she was going to marry him? Then it was Ricky's turn to be surprised, he said. Because of this, she herself tried to commit suicide the first time. Irma, with a twinkle in her eyes, smartly retorted that what was before has become overgrown with reality. Then she calmly added that he does not need to go to these lands of God's punishment and does not need to worry about marriage. It is not necessary to take her as his wife. Simply because she didn't need him, she was calm and confident when she looked into his eyes and talked about it. Ricky couldn't believe that she was saying this. He said that she was the one saying that at all. He did not like the bragging of this female, who was ready to die for him, and he immediately demanded an explanation or go to these lands. The girl replied that she had just realized it. She was not as bad as he thought. Moreover, she and him are quite similar, and she is not going to keep him near her. If in order to get rid of her he is ready to die, she must let him go and let him live. The guy looked closely at her with his wolf eyes. He heard the elder's voice. You see, Irma does not hold a grudge against him for what he did. Then he looked at Irma and asked, Is she crying? She was crying. The girl didn't even realize it. Tears were rolling down from her ocean blue eyes. Obviously, these were the last emotions of the memory of the previous owner of this body. After that, the girl calmly turned around and said that since the issue was closed, she left. She just had to help the former owner make her dream come true, that's all. From today, this body is completely hers. The ties with the former owner, her emotions, her condition are broken. Since she has been reborn, she must live with dignity, and so it will be. When the girl was sweeping the floors, a happy, smiling woman came into the house and happily chattered that she was so happy that everything had been resolved. Now there was nothing to worry about. She chirped cheerfully. Even if her daughter doesn't work out with Ricky, her mommy won't marry her off to the first person she meets. At first, our heroine looked at her with round eyes in surprise, and then it began to dawn on her that this was the mother of the previous owner of the body. As far as she remembered, the mother and daughter did not have a particularly warm relationship. This woman lived with several partners. The girl answered the woman that she would manage her own life, especially since she had no intention of looking for someone to get married. The mother screamed deafeningly. How could she not look for anyone? Coming of age in a month, the tribe would not support an adult female just like that. She would be expelled, and in the end, the ending would be death in the forest. The girl was amazed at such laws, and her mother continued to lament that the forest was full of exiles, and that she wanted to give birth to one of them. When she missed all this, the memory of the predecessor's body opened now, and the truth was shocking. If a werewolf reaches adulthood, he must find a mate. Otherwise, he will be expelled. Mom, having calmed down, busily proposed the candidacy of her nephew Martin. She would give them 2 days to think about it, and in half a month they could get to know each other. The girl replied that she would not even think about it, noting to herself that, of course, she had not had a relationship for a long time, but she was not ready for such extremes. A squabble began between them. The mother lamented that since the tribe took care of her, she should thank her with offspring, but she would not marry anyone. The girl denied that she would not want to support the tribe. She would feed herself. Irma screamed emotionally. Why the offspring? That she couldn't help the tribe in any other way. Mom replied that, unfortunately, no, breeding offspring and strengthening the tribe. This is the greatest contribution a woman can make. At this time, the bugle began to play, which meant that it was time to eat. Irma became hungry from all these worries. Mom remained standing in bewilderment, and Irma said that it was time for lunch. The girl happily rushed off, shouting to her mother that somehow they would return to the conversation. The mother shouted after her that she was a capricious child, driving her parent crazy. When the daughter had already disappeared, the woman said that this girl did not understand that they wanted the best for her. She would go to dinner with Martin, and whatever she wanted. The girl walked and wondered why she was reborn in this Manhwa with such brutal laws. There are other heroines sitting in their cottages, drinking cocktails and not blowing their heads. Seeing a berry on a tree, Irma picked it, when suddenly it dawned on her that it was from the 21st century. She has knowledge and she can use it to her advantage and will not just give up. Irma turned on the program she had been working on for a long time, which identified the unknown fruit as the fruit of a grapevine, which contained large amounts of iron and zinc. Therefore, it was impossible to use it. This is her saving program, on the development of which she spent 2 nights from her past life. In the system, she clicked on the image of the bag, but could not select it in the inventory, since it was full. Oh, if she knew that she would end up in this Manhwa, she would have made her inventory bottomless. Then the girl clicked on the image of the sword. Still better than nothing, as far as she remembered. In the world of werewolves, it is difficult to survive due to lack of food. But now, thanks to its development, she will be able to conduct research and survive on her own. This will help her become as independent as possible without depending on the tribe and the male. Hooray, she doesn't have to look for someone for herself so as not to die of hunger. The headman cut the boar ham, and when she saw Irma, the woman was glad that she had regained her appetite. Irma, in turn, said that she had thought about her behavior and realized that she had acted wrongly. From that moment on, the girl decided to do everything for the good of the tribe. The head woman was very happy with these words and asked to wait while she cooked the meat. But our heroine really wanted to start helping, Altruism was in full swing, and she decided to go and help with the cubs. When she arrived, she saw her mother, Mia, and Sophie there, as well as other girls. They looked at her suspiciously and mockingly, and Mia blurted out with a grin, "Why is this such generosity?" Irma took one of the babies in her arms, saying that she really didn't know how to help, so she hoped for support. Ricky and Jono walked by. The latter smilingly pointed at Irma, noticing that she had changed a lot. Ricky was a little embarrassed, and in order not to show it, he chuckled and said, "Oh, big deal." The head woman shouted at Jono to hurry up and throw away the bones and giblets, and not forget about the bamboo meat pots. Having heard about the offal, Irma began to think, they must be useful. They need to be researched. The girl activated the research program for new food. The organs and bones of animals were transferred to a new level. She approached the guys and asked if they were going to throw it all away, pointing to the offal and bones. Ricky displeasedly told her what she was up to, but Irma replied that it was a pity to throw away such tasty treats. Immediately, Mia appeared behind her, who was not taking her eyes off her rival to see what other bones and offal they were inedible. She seemed to shut the guy out by saying that she was just looking for a way to pester Ricky. But the girl flashed her icy eyes at her and replied that nothing connected her with Ricky. But where did they get the idea that bones and offal should not be eaten? Mia got wound up and screamed that she was not stupid. The internal organs stank, and there was no meat in the bones. If this was not the case, then she would give her a month's share of salt. "Ha!" said Ingrid. "No one pulled your tongue. Challenge accepted." The girl took one basket and walked along with Jono, throwing over her shoulder that she would wait for a month's portion of salt. Sophie frightenedly muttered to her friend that Irma looked so confident. And what if they really can be eaten? But Mia said that it was all a bluff. She just wants to attract Ricky's attention, that's all. Anger and hatred towards Irma, as well as the fact that the guys were paying attention to her, clouded her mind. All her thoughts were occupied with making everyone hate Irma. Jono lowered the basket of offal to the ground. Irma exhaled, and with a smile thanked the guy for his help. Without him, she would not have been able to carry everything herself. The young man smiled sweetly and replied that he was glad to help, although he did not know what she was up to. But he believes in her, and that she will be able to complete what she started. Irma blushed at these words. She turned her head shyly, pretending to straighten her hair, and thanked him for believing in her. Jono looked at her with his beautiful brown eyes directly at her. At that moment, one of the girls walked past them, carrying an armful of mushrooms, wailing that every spring so many of these mushrooms grow that they have to get rid of them. Irma was looking at the girl, thinking about something, when she suddenly ran after her. She yelled at her not to throw away the mushrooms, opening a program inside herself, which showed the name of the mushrooms. This is a type of mushroom of the champignon family, recommended for consumption. Great. She uses them in cooking and shouted to the girl if she could give them to her. She was surprised by such a desire for these mushrooms. But when giving them away, she warned Irma not to eat them, so Danny ate them and started bleeding. Irma, shining like the sun, pressed the mushrooms to her chest, assuring her sister that she would not eat. Mia was watching her. She clearly didn't like such pressure and self-confidence. What if she really succeeded? Irma asked Jono to help her crush the bones. He readily agreed, asking why she needed mushrooms. With a sly wink, the girl replied that these mushrooms are not poisonous. She will prepare a delicious bone soup from them. He himself will appreciate the amazing taste. The guy scratched his head in surprise, not suspecting that mushrooms could be cooked somehow. The soup was ready. An amazing aroma emanated from it. The bones added a satisfying richness. Irma decided it was time to try her creation, but she didn't have time to enjoy the taste when she heard voices and the sound of footsteps. Mia brought others, including her mother and the headman, shouting that Irma wanted to commit suicide again, pointing at the vat of soup. Running up to Irma, she angrily screamed that she had gone too far, said that she was saying goodbye to Ricky. But in fact, she again wanted to attract attention with her death. But even if she died, he would never be with her. Mother ran up and hugged me, lamenting that there was no need to do this. Irma tried to calm her mother down, saying that she didn't look like a person who wanted to commit suicide. These mushrooms were not poisonous. The headman said that Irma is very beautiful, and she shouldn't worry about a partner at all. but she's trying to kill herself like this and offered to marry her son. The girl began to freak out. No one heard her. These mushrooms are not poisonous. She saw a cuckoo eat them, and nothing happened to her. Jono stepped forward and said that he believed Irma. She wouldn't poison herself like that. And besides, he saw how she prepared the soup, which looks great and smells very tasty. Irma looked at the guy, and she was very pleased that at least he was the only one not going crazy with everyone. The elder approached the vat. The smell was truly delicious, but still she did not dare to try. Then Jono resolutely approached, took the bowl and said that he himself would prove that the soup was edible. 10 minutes passed. The headman, without taking his eyes off him, said that the cuckoo had already sung 5 times. How he was feeling. The guy, smiling and looking at Irma, said that it was very good. But there was one thing. Irma was worried, but then he said that the soup was very tasty. Inside, she cried tears of happiness. Well, it wouldn't be tasty for him. She put so much effort into it. Mia, annoyed, told him that the poison had simply not worked yet. Not enough time had passed. The young man dissatisfiedly besieged her that she always interferes. Irma came up with a new recipe and she needs to say thank you. That's the headman, Irma drawled, and she doesn't need her son. Jono and the headman stared at her. The headman asked if this was really so, but the girl added heatedly that she really didn't care about her son's feelings. The elder asked Jono what he thought about it. The guy smiled because he became even more attractive and said that he wanted to marry Irma, to which our heroine stuttered and stammered that he was the headman's son. In the memory of the previous owner of the body, there are no memories of other men except Ricky. Irma said that she would not say anything when the head girl asked what the girl herself thought about this. But her mother covered her mouth with her hand and did not let her finish. Heatedly said that this poor child was nervous and was saying God knows what. They were waiting for Jono for dinner. The young man calmly said with a smile that he would be happy to have dinner with them. Irma made a sound, but her mother still covered her mouth with her hand so that her daughter wouldn't blurt out something. You can't miss such a guy. She said that they were waiting for him for dinner and dragged the reluctant Irma home. In the evening, Irma and Jono fried their dinner. The girl sighed heavily. The guy asked why she sighs so much because she doesn't want to be with him. Irma convinced him that it wasn't about him. She just didn't have experience with a man, and besides, she didn't want to devote her whole life to raising children. Jono answered, "Is Ricky really better than him, for whom she tried to kill herself so many times?" But he felt the pain for her. No, she convinced the young man that he was wonderful. But did he really need a wife with such a reputation? And besides, he doesn't like her. Why force him to marry? Jono asked, only that bothers her. Irma nodded. Then he called her stupid and assured her that he liked her. That's why he wanted to get married, and not because he was forced to. Irma didn't expect this at all. She asked if he was joking, but Jono seriously confirmed his intentions. And besides, he was captivated by her intelligence. No one would have guessed to follow the cuckoo and figure out that the mushrooms are not poisonous. Then he still sincerely thanked the girl for the new recipe, which would diversify the diet. Irma's heart began to pound, and the guy added that her discovery could save more than one life in the future. Irma added, embarrassed, that he was exaggerating. She just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Jono beamed even more joyfully and said that Irma had changed a lot. He wanted her to become his wife, but he would not rush things. He would give her time to get used to him. Taking her hands and looking tenderly into her eyes, the young man added that he also hoped that she would give him the opportunity to get to know her better. Sally's mother, while eating mushroom soup, admired her child and how she came up with such a dish. She can eat 3 more servings in a row. Thanks to her daughter, they can now eat mushrooms. She really has changed a lot. Sophie handed her portion of soup to Mia, offering to share, but she nodded her head negatively. Stepping aside, Mia cursed Irma with all her might, lured Jono to her side, but she couldn't see Ricky, convincing herself that she was the most beautiful and enviable bride in the entire tribe, and all the men were hers. Jono walked with a basket full of mushrooms, whistling a tune. Suddenly, Ricky blocked his way, offering to talk with Irma. He motivated his impulse by the fact that they were friends. and Jono was not obliged to enter into a forced marriage because of himself. Jono frowned and replied that Ricky had too high an opinion of himself. He was going to marry Irma not out of coercion, but because he liked her. This answer was like a thunderclap for Ricky. He likes her. Jono told his friend that it was time to open his eyes. Irma had changed a lot, and besides, she was wonderful. These words stung Ricky unpleasantly. A friend added after some time, although she likes you, after which he corrected what he liked. In the past tense, these words somehow gave Ricky an unpleasant fever. Mia listened to their conversation, hiding in the bushes. She was bursting with anger. Two guys were arguing over this female. A pale guy with a simple-minded face took her hands and, looking into the girl's eyes, reassured her. Why should she be so angry? Let her already forget about this Irma, because she has him, and no one will love her as much as he does. He is ready to give his life. The last words about life greatly inspired Mia. She caressed him and ingratiatingly asked him that he would really even give his life for her. She leaned towards his ear and cooed. Let him come tonight, and then he understands. Jono came back from the hunt cheerfully and brought Irma a well-fed hare. Having handed the trophy to the girl, he said that she needed to eat more in order to become big and cute by winter. The guy explained that thin werewolves cannot survive the winter, unlike fat ones, so everyone tries to eat more. Being fat is good. Irma questioningly analyzed the information received. The hare squeaked pitifully in her hands. Jono took the hare and pulled it towards him, saying that as soon as he butchered it, he would immediately return it to Irma. Irma grabbed the animal by the side without giving it to the guy, saying that if the main problem of werewolves in winter is related to the lack of food, then she can help. She said that she could make supplies for them for the winter. Then the problem with the lack of food would go away. The girl explained in detail her plan, how they would collect the food and prepare it for long-term storage so that it would not spoil. Jono, in joyful excitement, happily shaking Irma, shouted that she was a genius. If they stocked up, they would be able to survive the winter without any problems. He hugged her and picked her up, squeezing her in his arms. The girl modestly said that she had done nothing of the sort. Still euphoric, Jono grabbed Irma's hand and pulled him to tell his mother about this brilliant idea. The elder watched with a smile as they ran hand in hand and asked if something had happened. Jono held Irma's hand tightly and reported to his mother that Irma knew how to survive the winter. The woman became very interested, and taking the girl by the hands, began to listen carefully. Irma explained that these were mushrooms, but the head woman doubted it. Although Irma proved that they are not poisonous, many are still afraid to eat them. Our heroine explained that there are poisonous and edible mushrooms. If you dry the mushroom, then it will be quite possible to eat it after washing it. The elder, thoughtfully, said that this could really be their salvation, and Jono joyfully reported that Irma knows how to distinguish edible mushrooms from inedible ones. They can send the guys to collect mushrooms that can feed the tribe. The woman, in turn, agreed with the young people, saying that Irma helped the tribe a lot, and they should thank her. Irma, blushing, replied that it was nothing, and then noted that she knew how to preserve meat. The elder stood up straight. But this is no joke. The girl explained that she knows how to make dried meat, which will spoil without any problems until winter. Irma thoughtfully said that this requires a lot of salt, and as she could judge from the memories of the previous owner, every year they exchange meat for salt, and it turns out that salt is more valuable than meat. The woman assured the girl that if they eat this way, they can save the meat. She will find a way to get salt, but meat is not an easy matter. Asking Irma to forgive her for not being able to tell everything now for her safety. Irma was not offended at all. She said that she would go into the forest to see if she could find anything else edible. Then Jono's mother invited her son to accompany her, since it was dangerous in the forest. Our heroine thought a little. She and Jono together. Of course they don't mind. The guy exhaled and began to transform into his true form. A minute later, a huge bird stood in front of Irma. This made an incredible impression on her. Especially the size of the bird was simply amazing. Converted, Jono said, "She is so amazed that she is speechless. With him they fly off in the blink of an eye." Oh well, our nervous heroine climbed onto the back of the bird, her heart pounding. Jono, getting ready to take off, asked her if she should hold on tightly. The girl confirmed, thinking about how cool it would be to fly on an eagle. If she told anyone, no one would believe it. They soared up. He asked if she liked it. Irma shouted that she really liked it. She really felt incredible sensations. His eye glanced sideways at his companion, and he said that he liked her too, explaining that when a werewolf is in his true form, only his partner is allowed to sit on him. Therefore, whether she will be his, but he did not finish. Irma exclaimed in surprise. This is a turn, she thought, yet such a rapid development scared her. They arrived at the place. The girl looked around in surprise. The trees were so huge. Jono explained that the forest of werewolves begins here, and it is dangerous to go further. Even the bravest trappers do not go there alone. He suggested that she look around and look for what she needed. Irma ran from one tree to another. Everything was somehow fantastic. Huge fruits and shoots. The local nature is completely different from the earth. It's good that she has an identification system. Going up to one of the sprouts, she scanned that it was a green sprout that can be eaten after processing and removing the bitterness. Wait, isn't this bamboo? It dawned on her, and she waved to Jono to help bring her these sprouts. She will cook something delicious at home. The guy looked with all his eyes when he heard that if you dry them, they will be stored for many more years. He began to break it with zeal, anticipating the next tasty treat from Irma. Next, Irma scanned the next plant. The program confirmed the edibility of these thin-leaved vegetables with a sweet taste. Then she went to tree yams containing a high starch content, also taken, edible. Then she saw huge eggs. These are cuckoo eggs, they are edible. But then an angry, huge cuckoo swooped in, which did not share Irma's interest in using her unhatched princes as a snack. She wanted to peck at Irma, but Jono arrived in time and covered her with himself. The bird sat down and glared at them menacingly, saying you can't even dream about it. Irma looked upset. They were so close, just a little more. Jono leaned so close to her and said that they already had enough of everything. Irma blushed and pulled back, as if keeping her distance, and said that it was really time to go back. The guy asked, trying to look into her eyes, "Is she shy?" Irma, all crimson, tried to prove the opposite. But Jono smiled and said that it was the first time he had seen a girl get embarrassed. It was very cute. Irma asked again quietly, as if for the first time she was surprised by this, and then again babbled that she was not embarrassed at all. When they returned, the elder and others from the tribe met them and were glad that, thanks to Irma, they had more and more food. One young man said that he did not expect this from Irma. Now they will survive the winter without any problems. Irma came forward and offered to teach residents how to identify edible mushrooms from inedible ones, and then everyone could prepare for winter without her help. The girl explained that if mushrooms with light caps, light yellow, light gray, then they do not pose a danger. Mushrooms with bright caps will most likely be poisonous, but if in doubt, they can always turn to her. The crowd became animated. Young people raised their hands and asked about mushrooms. Irma answered and explained. Demonstrating each mushroom from the baskets, she pointed out the type and color of the mushroom. Mia twisted with anger when one of the males in the crowd said that Irma had changed a lot since she stopped chasing Ricky. Now she can be considered the most beautiful female in the tribe. And how does this creature manage to distinguish mushrooms? It is only how the headman helps. If only this girl would marry her son. She wished her death. Danny was cooking dinner when Mia approached him, slyly squinting. She reminded him how he said that he was ready to do anything for her, even die. He remembers that. The young man jumped up like a child, putting his hands on Mia's shoulders and assured her that he loved her more than anyone and was ready to give his life. She clung to him and held out a fly agaric for him to eat. The guy staring at her said, "It's poisonous." Mia wrapped her arms around him and babbled in the most seductive voice. But still, he is not ready to give up his life for her. When he realized that Mia was ready to give herself to him, he happily babbled that of course he agreed. He kissed and babbled to her how much he loved her. She grimaced and thought disgustingly what an abomination. If only he wouldn't disappoint her. Irma was still teaching as Sophie ran screaming trouble. The girl screamed that Danny was poisoned by mushroom soup, although Irma said that these mushrooms can be eaten. But this is not so. The elder and everyone else were scared how this could happen. Danny lay there. Foam was coming out of his mouth. He was all pale and breathing heavily. Mia, feigning grief, shedding a tear, held his hand. Irma, looking at the young man, was sure that he had eaten a poisonous mushroom, but the mushrooms that he showed her were not poisonous. She remembers this for sure, which means he ate some other mushroom. The head girl leaned over to the guy and asked how he was feeling. Mia realized that this was the moment to blame her rival. She ran up to the girl and raised her hand to slap her in the face, insulting her with the last words. Suddenly, a strong man's hand grabbed her hand. Jono covered Irma with himself, angrily asking what Mia was up to, frightened by male power. She babbled that she wanted to give the poisoner what she deserved. He said sharply that the girl was not to blame for anything. Everyone picked mushrooms and ate them too. This didn't happen to anyone else. But Mia screamed, why then did Danny die? She started shouting so that everyone could hear that Irma could not distinguish between mushrooms. They were poisoned. The inhabitants of the tribe, succumbing to the words, began to groan and gasp, also finding signs of poisoning in themselves. With the last of his strength, Danny stood up and said that everything was wrong. Let them not throw away the mushrooms. Otherwise, they would not survive the winter. Jono approached the guy and asked him to explain everything. Otherwise, no one knows how many werewolves will die in the winter. Danny broke out in a cold sweat from the words that then their tribe would simply die out. Tears rolled down his face, and the guy began to tell how it happened, that it was he who set up Irma. He deliberately added a red mushroom to the soup, so let everyone know that the mushrooms specified by Irma are safe. He repented to Irma with tears in his eyes. The girl asked him, they barely know each other, so why should he set her up? Jono answered for him that he didn't know Irma, but he did with Mia. And besides, he himself heard how Danny was happy yesterday that Mia agreed to become his partner at the coming-of-age ceremony. It was difficult for Danny to speak, but he croaked that he really liked Mia. But Irma didn't like Mia. He just wanted to help his beloved. Mia ran out into the street in anger, thinking of Danny as a useless piece of crap that would be more useful if he died. Irma asked the head girl if Danny would recover, but she shook her head. We need to wait. We can't disturb him for now, but we'll see. Irma felt very sad at heart, although it became clear that the guy had deliberately poisoned himself. Jono hugged his friend encouragingly, saying that everything will be fine. There is no need to be discouraged. Irma began to doubt whether all this was worth undertaking, and what if Danny was poisoned after all through her fault? The guy patted her on the head and said that there was no need to reproach herself. Danny himself was to blame for his stupidity, and it was not her fault. The headman stood behind, watching her son console Irma. She also sympathized with her. Then the head girl remembered Mia, by the way. Where is she? Her friend Sophie blinked her eyes, not knowing how to get rid of her friend. Mia was having fun with one of the males, asking him to console her because her heart was breaking because of Danny. He promised her oblivion, but she must also help him meet guests from the Quay tribe. She began to ask Connor if Aya, her friend from this tribe, would come. Connor rudely berated her for her number of questions. Mia whined that he was so cruel to her, and yet she felt so bad because of Danny. The male freaked out that she started talking about this Danny even during sex. Well, she feels bad, so why did she come here? Let her sit with him. She, in turn, sent him saying that Danny was dying, and at least he didn't care. While he was getting dressed, he abandoned it. And why shouldn't she really go to him? In case he really dies, she'll at least say goodbye. Yeah, right now, Mia thought. Why doesn't she come across caring guys, but insensitive blockheads? All her hatred fell on Irma. She has already taken 2 males from her. She will not forgive her for this. Out of anger, she went to Danny. The guy was still weak. Irma's mother was with him, and when she saw Mia, she said that Danny always asks when she will come. Taking the bowl from Sally's hands, she asked to feed Danny herself. Mia tried her best to show her concern for the young man, saying that she would look after the guy. She let Sally go. Feigning grief, she asked the woman, when she left the cave, whether Danny would recover. She, throwing a displeased look at her, replied that she did not know, but she needed to take care of him as much as possible. Squeezing out a tear, she thanked her aunt, adding that she would definitely take care of the guy. As soon as she left, Mia looked at the dying Danny with hatred and contempt. The next minute, she began to beat him, calling him a piece of lying crap. Danny jumped up and looked with a smile at his beloved, who had finally come. But from her words and distorted face, he became scared. The girl screamed that he was stupid. He couldn't even do this little thing properly. Let him remember, he's no match for her. She's just using him. The young man turned whiter than from a poisonous mushroom. But how can she say that? What about their love and the coming-of-age ceremony? Mia began to look like a monster. She mockingly said that he had been looking at his face for a long time, but not a single female would give it to him. If he died right away, there would be one less trash in the world. This completely deprived the guy of the reason to live. He said, "You," and sharply grabbed his stomach. He felt bad. Mia began to pretend to cry so that he would not die and called for help. Connor came running. The intuitive woman, mockingly looking sideways at the dying Danny, muttered to Connor that she was very scared since Danny was dying. The last tear appeared on Danny's face, and the last thought of his departing consciousness was how pathetic he was in the hope that his death would not be in vain. Danny was buried. At his funeral, Mia sobbed loudly, but the next day someone saw her having fun with other men. Life went on as usual, but not for Irma. She sighed sadly. Melancholy and heaviness lay like a stone on her heart. Jono encouraged her as best he could, because the world of werewolves is a dangerous place. One day you are talking to a friend, and the next moment you see how he finds himself in the mouth of a beast. To dispel her sadness, he took her shoulders and said that it was time to get up and move on with life. In the end, Danny died a natural death, and she also told her what to do with the green sprouts. He grabbed her hand and led her. Irma asked not to pull her so hard. It so happened that she tripped over a stone and flew straight at him. He deftly pulled the girl to him. Irma blushed and apologized for such awkwardness. Jono, feeling her so close, looked into her eyes and asked if she would marry him. Irma felt like the heroine of the series, who was taken by surprise and kissed, and now someone must take the first step. Her lips parted with a kiss. She felt Jono's breath, but said that she didn't know. He pulled back and good-naturedly said, "Well, if she doesn't want to," feeling disappointed because of the failed kiss. She said that she didn't want to express herself that way. The young man was not at all offended. He took her hand and said that he did not expect reciprocity from her right now. He understands that she needs time. Let him say when she is ready. Without giving her anything to answer, he grabbed Irma by the hand and led her to cook until the sun set. That's right. Today she planned to marinate the offal with fruit. Irma began the marinating process. Jono was always nearby, ready to help. He became very curious that it smelled so delicious. Irma smiled mysteriously. Then she poured it into a plate and announced that it was a stew made from the same intestines that they were about to throw away. Having seated the guy, Irma put a plate of stew in front of him and offered to try it. Jono was noticeably nervous, even though he trusted Irma, but still clarified whether it was definitely edible. But when he put the first spoon into his mouth, his eyes lit up with bliss and deliciousness. The guy was delighted. The guy felt the spice. It was unusual for him. He asked if these were really the same intestines. Was it really possible to prepare such a delicious dish from them? Irma added that the secret was still in a spoon of spices. Jono, surprised and interested, tried to find out where Irma got such culinary knowledge. The girl turned away so as not to give herself away, and replied that it was just intuition. It looks like he believed it, but she can't tell him about the identification system. The satisfied elder, while devouring the stew, officially announced that from now on they will cook from bones and offal, and then in winter, no one will die of hunger. After eating, she approached Irma and sincerely thanked her for such help, because so many males get injured while hunting, and so many are old people who cannot hunt. This causes so many deaths because werewolves feel like garbage in these situations. But now that they know they can cook mushrooms, they can just go and collect them while the trappers are hunting. The elder called Irma a true savior and heroine without holding back her tears. Irma cordially assured that she was simply sharing knowledge. In addition, she and Jono brought other food from the forest. The woman was surprised if she really knew anything else. Irma said that she knew how to preserve. You can dry it in the sun like they did with green sprouts and mushrooms, or you can make jerky and ferment cabbage. but you need to use expensive salt for this. The head woman assured Irma that there was no need to worry about salt. The Quay tribe would come next month, and it would be possible to bargain with them. All products had to be taken to the cave where supplies were stored. They took Irma with them, and, as a trusted person, showed where all the food supplies were kept. Irma gasped with admiration. "Who came up with such a thing? This is an ice cellar!" The head woman explained that this was the merit of the elders of past generations. Every autumn they bring water here so that it turns into ice. Since it is always cold in the cave, the ice does not melt until autumn. Then Irma saw a basket of vegetables and gasped. She swallowed nervously and asked to look. They were secretly watched by Mia, burning with envy, who could not calm down that this rubbish was doing everything to attract attention to herself. It infuriated her that the headman was on Irma's side. The whole tribe seemed to have gone crazy. Meanwhile, having scanned the vegetables, Irma exclaimed, "Yes, this is a sweet herb containing a lot of sugar, edible." In her other hand, she was holding potatoes. Irma asked how much of these products they had. The head woman replied that there was a lot. The elder explained that the sweet grass spoils quickly, you can't collect much of it, and the mian root grows in the mountains. Irma, excited and with sparkling eyes, told the headman that this was a real treasure. Mia listened and wondered what was so special about this root. Irma told me that from the sweet grass, they would make non-perishable sugar, which both cubs and pregnant females could eat. Having heard that the mian root would make a very satisfying vermicelli, Mia immediately decided to tell the Quay tribe about it. Her thoughts were interrupted by the approaching Jono, who sensed someone's presence. Mia realized late that she had been tracked down and did not have time to escape. He looked at her suspiciously and asked what she forgot there. Mia shifted hysterically, thinking of ways to lie, when she suddenly blurted out that she had come to fulfill her promise. She held out the bowl of salt, declaring that she had lost the bet and was wrong. So she kept her promise, rejoicing in her resourcefulness and insight. She hurried to leave, thinking about how to quickly get to the Quay tribe. Jono found all this suspicious and came here with salt because she could have simply brought it home to Irma. The elder and Irma discussed salting the meat using the girl's method. The meat was stored in a small cave at the top of the mountain. Irma sniffed the meat, saying that it should not smell. First, it should be taken out into the sun and dried. The elder said that she would tell the men to do this, so that all the meat from the hunt would be dried in the sun. She lowered her voice and said that she had a couple of questions for Irma, hinting at privacy. Left where they would not be heard, the woman thanked Irma for the knowledge she was sharing. But where she got it from, the girl had changed a lot. Irma had to lie about the god beast who appeared to her during another suicide attempt. It was something like an insight. The old woman burst into tears at such a revelation, declaring that she knew that the god beast would not leave them. She once again warmly thanked Irma for her knowledge and revelations. The girl brought the prince into the tribe not only food, but also good news. Irma felt ashamed for lying. She apologized for her limited knowledge, thinking how awkward it would be to deceive the head girl, who trusted Irma so much. But she also couldn't say anything about the built-in program. The head woman affectionately stroked the girl on the head, saying that she had nothing to apologize for. Thanks to her, she now knows how to preserve food supplies. This is a huge contribution. She warned Irma that there are many dangers in the outside world, but she can stay in the tribe. They themselves will bring her food. The girl will only need to determine edibility. Irma agreed, adding that she just needed to deal with starch. She wouldn't have time for forays into the forest. The head woman breathed a sigh of relief, thinking to herself that this child would not run away anywhere. The tribe boys brought baskets with sweet grass and mian root. Irma was cooking food in the cauldron. The guys felt hungry from such a fragrant smell. The men stood and impatiently waited for their portion. While serving the portions, they asked what this food was made from, and the girl replied that it was offal. Everyone opened their mouths. Could offal really smell so delicious? One of the young men grabbed his portion, declaring that since Irma cooks amazing soups from bones and mushrooms, he would be happy to taste this dish. Irma was pleased when the males, like children, piled on her cooking and were delighted with the delicious dish. Only Mia could not find peace, calling Irma a damn bitch. She told Connor to go and wash the offal, and then let him bring it here. They will cook it much tastier than Irma's. Connor washed the offal in the river. The stench was strong. Mia was angry that he didn't wash it well. She didn't see a problem at all with cooking something from the bones and offal, since that rubbish worked. It's worse. The girls watched this picture, shaking their heads. They thought that Mia had gone crazy after Danny's death. Connor stirred the intestines in the vat. Mia covered her nose and constantly sawed him at how shitty he was at cooking. He didn't even really clean it. Finally, he couldn't stand it and banged the cauldron with all the force, yelling that actually he wasn't a female to cook. It was her responsibility, and he had to spend all day and night brainstorming with Irma. Why the hell did she get riveted to her? In response, she attacked Connor, yelling, and she stuck to it, and another round of mutual abuse ensued. The girls, listening to their dialogue, agreed that envy and stinginess do not lead to good things. Jono praised Irma, how well done she was. The girl embarrassedly replied that it was easy. He picked her up in his arms, saying that she was the genius of the tribe. She wouldn't have managed it. But of course, he understands that it's not easy. They joked and laughed while Ricky watched them from behind. Irma became different. Her chest felt somehow painful and annoying. He thought that apparently the changes affected not only their tribe. Even Irma's feelings changed. He looked at a happy and laughing girl who was once in constant depression and did not give him a pass. He should be happy for his friend. He really chose a wonderful girl. Irma went to the vat, where, according to her recipe, sweet grass was boiled and mixed to make sugar. Irma thought that she only knew how to prepare brown sugar, but how to filter it was a problem. If only they had gauze. Besides, they needed to prepare starch powder. At that moment, Jono patted her on the head, joking that she was starting to smoke from the thoughts of a genius. But nothing was beyond her control. She looked thoughtfully at the smiling young man, always so easy and at ease with him. Suddenly it dawned on her. Well, of course, you can make baskets from bamboo. She told Jono that she needed his help. They went to a bamboo grove, where the guy explained that they needed to cut bamboo to weave baskets for straining sugar and starch. Everything was simple in words, but it was more complicated when the guy started cutting bamboo. He cut the bamboo with his claw, but it was very difficult to calculate the strength. Many shoots were damaged. He puffed and groaned. Irma watched his suffering. She completely forgot that all the tools here are primitive, and there is no Iron Age here. When suddenly she remembered the dagger in her inventory, of course. Approaching Jono, she handed the surprised guy a dagger so that he could try cutting with it. The job went quickly and smoothly. The bamboo was cut like clockwork. The guy was delighted. This thing is much sharper than their claws. Irma calmly explained that it is called a dagger. This thing would be very useful when hunting, but it's okay. Now they'll finish the job. At this time, the sugar preparation process was in full swing. Irma and Jono were busy weaving baskets. The elder supervised the process of preparing sugar. The guys told the elder that everything was ready. She asked them to use up the firewood in 3 days. But why such a rush? Why exactly 3 days? Irma was surprised. The elder remembered that Irma was with the tribe all the time, so she explained. Sweet grass and mian root grow only in spring. The summer sun burns them out. Since the god beast turned away from werewolves, winter has lasted for 5 months, so death can threaten not only from hunger, but also from the claws of wild animals. And in the summer, during the rainy season, due to rising water levels, there is a great threat from landslides. A huge number of tribes died from floods. And in summer, there is a problem with obtaining meat, and in winter it needs to be stored, and it spoils in 5, 6 days. Even though they are in the highlands, some trappers die while going hunting, and those who go missing are considered dead. The world of trappers is very harsh, but even it has its own built-in system. Irma began to understand these laws that were necessary for survival and reproduction. A semi-public and semi-private social system was created. Minor trappers are dependent on the tribe. Males bring the required daily amount of food, but if you don't have enough of it, then that's your problem. Females are engaged in cubs and cooking. The main goal of this species is reproduction. All females must choose a partner and give birth to him. But it is quite acceptable to have more than one partner to accurately guarantee conception. But Irma didn't want to get married or have children, or she's just stalling for time and fooling Jono. My God, how simple it was in her world. Whether you want to give birth or not, there was a choice. But here it simply isn't there. Jono watched Irma and finally decided to ask if she was okay. Irma smiled tightly and said that everything was fine. She needed to go and see how the sweet grass was. While mixing the brew in the vat with the others, the girl couldn't help but think that she needed to talk to Jono frankly. Irma was very tired. Her hands could no longer stir the viscous mixture. At that moment, Jono came up and stood behind her and took her stick to help the girl. He was close. His breath touched his face. Well, that's how to bear it all. Mia was watching this process from behind a tree. She was infuriated by the very fact that the males were not paying attention to her. She angrily shared with Sophie how much she hated this girl, because of whom the sick were now also working. They should not stick their heads out at all. Sophie, hesitantly, explained that Irma gave them the opportunity to work, to help, to be useful. Mia hysterically attacked her friend, squealing that she could see it perfectly. It turns out that now this girl is better than her. Timid Sophie began to reassure her that she didn't think so at all. She was her friend. Then she threatened Sophie that if she found out that she was planning something behind her back, frightened Sophie, who was frightened by Mia, tried to assure that this would not happen under any circumstances. Mia smugly praised her friend, noting that she only has a future with her. She already told Jacob to choose Sophie at the coming-of-age ceremony. She beamed with joy, knowing that Jacob didn't like her. But thanks to her friend, she would still choose her. The elder and Irma supervised the preparation of sugar. Now it needs to be dried in the sun and then cut. Irma confirmed the sequence of the process, adding that the same should be done with starch water. She called it quits and invited the workers to stay for dinner. The wounded werewolf happily volunteered to help tomorrow, but the guys refused. They were sincerely grateful to the girl for the fact that they no longer felt useless. One of the guys added with tears that they used to hide out of shame and eat leftovers. But now, thanks to her care, they boldly go out to their fellow tribesmen without fear of condemnation. Irma replied that they had suffered enough and deserved gratitude. The guys said goodbye to Irma warmly until the next working day. The head woman watched with what admiration Jono looked at Irma and asked if he liked her. The guy replied that he liked her very much. The old mother was very happy for her son, who finally wants to start a family. But Jono told his mother that Irma had not yet given her consent. At that moment, the girl called him. At the threshold of her house, she thanked the young man for his help, saying that they needed to rest. Irma happily went to take a shower, but when she began to undress, she saw a twig on her wrist. When it appeared, it had not been there before. The girl's head was spinning that this could be probably some kind of serious illness. When the branch moved, she screamed so loudly that a frightened Jono flew in. Irma showed a strange moving tree branch on her arm, asking what kind of disease this was. Jono exclaimed joyfully that it was not a disease. She would soon become a mother. Pointing to her hand, he explained that this is a sign that she will have children. If 3 leaves move, then there will be 3 children. This happens not only to women, but also to men. He affectionately repeated that she would become a mother. Irma began to get hysterical. How could this be? She didn't even want to get married, but here were 3 children. And they are from Ricky, and here's what to do now. Jono stroked the gloomy, almost crying Irma. Isn't she happy? There's no need to worry, and Ricky won't want her anymore. He offered to tell him about the children himself, but Irma stopped him with a scream. Horror struck her. The existence of these children is proof that Ricky forced the former owner of the body. And if the children ask about their father, what should she answer them? Irma firmly told Jono that she wanted nothing to do with Ricky in this life and didn't want these children. Jono seriously stopped her and said that she couldn't say that. A female who doesn't want to give birth to children is not worthy to be called a female. Those who cannot give birth are expelled from the tribe. Children are the most valuable gift of the god beast. The girl explained that she did not want the children to grow up without a father, and besides, she herself would not be able to raise them. She burst into tears and said that she was not yet ready to take on such responsibility. The former owner had left such a mess, and she needed to clean it up. Jono began to calm her down, apologizing for scaring her. He hugged the sobbing Irma to his chest, when suddenly it dawned on him. He said that he wanted to show her something. Starting to transform, he added that now she would see one place. Irma felt very bad, but Jono carried her through the air. When they landed, the young man said that she probably didn't know that before they were born, the cubs were in an egg in the sanctuary of the god beast. Standing on the top of the mountain, the guy showed her the sanctuary cave that he wanted to show her. They arrived at a cave where there were many eggs, future babies. The priestess, smiling, also came to look at the eggs. Pointing to 3 eggs lying nearby, she noticed that they appeared only today. Taking one egg, the girl held it and did not understand what she felt. These were her future children. This is so unusual, her pregnancy, which she holds in her hands. Jono explained that the cub and the mother are spiritually connected. If the mother is happy, then the cub is too. If he is sad, he feels the same. He looked at her, asking if she really didn't feel anything while holding the egg in her hand. She understood that she didn't feel anything for Ricky. The children would be without a father and what to do about it. But Jono, smiling, said maybe he would be suitable for this role. She looked at him in surprise. The guy beamed with happiness, declaring that he really liked her and hoped that her choice would fall on him. He declared with confidence that he was ready to repeat this at least 100 times and would never change his mind. Jono stated that he dreams of them hunting and raising children together. He once again asked to become her partner to take care of her and the children. Irma muttered, pouting her lips so that she would not regret this choice later. But Jono, out of happiness, grabbed her in his arms and took off, shouting that this was just wonderful. Irma asked to be put on the ground, as she reminded her that bears are afraid of heights. He carried her and joked with a smile that their new house would not be built on a tree then. The girl asked about the new house, and Jono enthusiastically said that they would build their own house. Left alone, Irma covered her face with her hands. How long had she been in this world since she agreed to marry this trapper? Happy Jono came in, bringing bags of colored iridescent stones. When the stunned Irma asked why he brought all this, he explained that since he is now her partner, then while they do not have their own home, he will live with her. He will protect her and the cubs. Irma couldn't come to her senses. He was going to move in with her right now. He poured stones onto her bed. The girl stood indecisive. She was not ready for such drastic changes. He took her hand. Irma, looking into his eyes, asked if they were in a hurry. Before she had time to come to her senses, Jono, undressing her, whispered that yesterday she agreed to become his partner, and today she takes her words back. How quickly everything happens. These trappers are so insidious. The girl, already undressed, found herself in his arms. Then a nervous Irma asked why he thought she was taking back her words. Without letting her finish, the guy covered her lips with his in a voluptuous kiss. Irma, not knowing how to evade, asked again if it means he likes her. The guy answered yes. He added that he doesn't expect her to love him today. He just wants to know that she likes him more and more every day. Irma asked him to wait. He began to kiss her body. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she bit her hand to keep from screaming. Jono gently kissed his hand, saying that there was no need to bite. Otherwise, it would hurt. Jono looked at her with lust. He was also very excited, Irma thought. Kissing and whispering words of love and tenderness, Jono begged her to become his. He would accept her cubs, and then they would have their own. Irma sighed heavily. She was very ashamed. They lay together, resting their heads on his chest. She heard him say not to worry. He wouldn't do anything else until the ceremony. Stop the earth, I'll get off. What just happened and is now? The next day, Ricky heard everyone discussing Jono and Irma living together, and also that they should expect a replenishment soon. He looked at Jono in surprise, wondering if they were already living together. He approached the guy who was carrying a basket of mushrooms and whistling a melody. Jono became very angry when Ricky clarified whether the rumors that he and Irma were living together were true, declaring that Irma would be his partner. Ricky felt a warning that the female was busy and reassured his friend, saying that he did not pretend to anything. When leaving, he said that he would not interfere with them, since he was not interested in Irma. Jono was worried that sooner or later he would see Irma's mark and then become her male. He said behind Ricky that they had known each other for a long time, and that couldn't be changed. And he really hopes that he will remember his words. Behind the bushes, Mia listened to their showdown, furious with anger that the males were fighting not because of her, but because of Irma. Well, it's okay. She has a friend, Aya, the daughter of the third elder of the Quay tribe. You think she can get away with everything. Irma was preparing vermicelli and pouring out portions. One of the guys said that he didn't think that vermicelli was so tasty, which means that in addition to meat, you can eat other foods. Mia came up and asked if Irma was busy. She asked what was needed. Having shed a tear, Mia began to press on the pity that she could neither eat nor sleep because she had angered her sister Irma. She made a mistake, but they were still friends. Our heroine remembered melodramas from her past life. The words were exactly the same, but she couldn't be fooled by such a cheap trick. Throwing away Mia's hand, she replied that she had a clear idea of her personality, so there was no need to humiliate herself and make a show, and they had never been friends, so there was nothing to talk about. But Mia did not give up. She tried to gain confidence and told Irma how she wanted to contribute to the cause of the tribe, and in general she had such a heaviness in her soul that you couldn't tell her right away. She continued to chatter and ask to be taught how to cook. God, why are you so annoying? Irma thought. When asked what she wanted to learn how to cook, Mia pointed her finger at the noodles. But the ambassador was quickly sent for a walk in the forest. Irma stated that the headman did not order to spread the word about the recipe. At this time, Sophie showed Jacob a cape made of skin, which she had been sewing for a month. He did not even look at her when Mia called the girl in an orderly tone. Jacob ran like a dog towards her voice, and then Sophie came up, feeling humiliated and trampled. Mia ordered Sophie to go and learn how to cook meat in starch, and then they would cook it themselves. With a fallen voice, Sophie asked what she could do if Irma didn't tell Mia about the recipe, when she immediately reminded her friend about the coming-of-age ritual and that she might be left without Jacob. He rudely barked at Sophie, saying that if he wants to like her, she should do what Mia says. Lowering her head, Sophie muttered that she would go and try to find out. Mia approached the girl and, pretending to encourage her, said that as long as she was with her, everything would be fine. Approaching Irma, Sophie asked to teach how to cook meat so that others could try it. She replied that it was not a question. Having poured the meat soup, she handed it to Sophie, who was sincerely delighted. Irma explained that everyone could come and try, while she could only serve as a treat. The headwoman said to prepare noodles before winter, so she is busy now. Having given the bowl to Sophie, Irma returned to her task. Approaching Mia, who was waiting for her, she held out the bowl, saying that she had brought it for her to try. The next second, Mia looked like a fury, knocking the bowl out of her hands and yelling at her friend that she was a complete fool. She didn't need Irma's cooking. She was told to find out the recipe and not beg for food. All this was seen by Irma and Ricky, who scolded Sophie and Mia for being so shameless with food that was obtained through hard work. Taken by surprise, Mia began to frantically figure out what to answer. Immediately, she got out of it and put the blame on Sophie, saying that she gave her a hot cup and almost scalded her. At this time, one of the werewolves was running through the village, shouting that the Quay tribe was already at the gate. Jono ran up to the guys and told Irma that the head girl was waiting for them and wanted to tell them something. Mia smiled maliciously. Her friend Aya came. When their tribe unites with the Quay, then we'll see who wins. Jono walked worriedly, leading Irma by the hand, who asked about this Quay tribe. She saw that the guy was worried. He said that the Quay tribe is the most powerful in the Ueluo Mountains, due to the fact that there are more of them, and they own the best resources. At the same time, they are powerful and insidious. Someone clearly warned them secretly if they came here so suddenly. Irma thought out loud, remembering how today Mia, who was giving her a side, suddenly began asking her to teach her how to cook vermicelli. Jono screamed and slammed his fist into the tree. It was definitely her. If the Quay tribe found out where they kept food supplies for the winter, they would take it. Then he saw that he had scared Irma with his harshness, apologized and hugged her. It just made him very angry. Mother told him to delay the Quay tribe as long as possible. He needed to find time to hide the food. They arrived. A luxurious blonde female with huge blue eyes extended her hand and introduced herself as Aya, the wife of the new elder of the Quay tribe. Irma, a little nervously, extended her hand and said her name, not knowing what to say next. But Jono hugged her and proudly continued her speech, introducing her as the future wife of the elder of the Osawa tribe. Irma and Jono invited the guests to the table, Aya said with a mocking look at the snacks. And this is all the hospitality of the Osawa tribe. Stealingly peering into Irma's eyes, she cooed about rumors that said that things were going well for them lately. Jono got excited and replied sharply that they were really doing well and demanded that they bring more food. They brought dishes prepared according to Irma's new recipes, including intestine stew. Aya, seeing these dishes, asked, raising her eyebrows arrogantly, what they were. The young male sitting next to her added that apparently the Osaya tribe had become so weak that they could not hunt normally, since they were eating bones and entrails. Irma, with a smile, suggested that we try it first, and then they would talk. Jono quietly whispered to her that the Quay wanted to use them to take animal fur, but they could offer them mushrooms and bamboo shoots in exchange for salt. But he can't bargain from words at all, as now Mother knows how to do it well, but now she's busy. Hearing the bargaining, Irma's eyes lit up with excitement and she said to rely on her. Aya was eating the soup and blushed with pleasure. She could not hide her admiration. Irma, smiling cordially, explained that preparing soup from entrails is quite a task. Just like stew, the entrails need to be properly processed and the mushrooms sorted. Aya offered a deal. They would teach them how to cook this delicious soup, and the Quay tribe would offer an equally valuable product. Irma started bidding, one recipe in exchange for 100 bamboo sticks of salt. The guy sitting next to him was Aya's younger brother. He told his sister not to let this lustful female happen. He can teach her this now. The girl answered her brother that he was still too young. They could dry dried bamboo shoots and internal organs themselves without problems. What was much more important was the method of preparing them and the trapper who knew how to do it. Aya studied Irma, thinking, since the tribe trusted her, then maybe she could take not only Mia. She approached Irma and said that they were satisfied with the deal, but there was a request if they could carefully study the entire process in order to avoid mistakes. Of course, let everyone come here. Irma happily agreed to teach them and start with mushrooms. The males approached, led by Pete, Aya's brother, who bared his torso, showing off his body. Jono instantly flushed and shouted to Aya what it was. One of the young men, a pretty and timid boy, noticed that they just wanted to learn from their sister Irma all the intricacies of cooking. What's the big deal? Jono could no longer be stopped, he shouted. Let them just try to do something with Irma. Threats rained down on all the males. Irma whispered to him that this was a business meeting. They were here for 2 days. No nerves. The modest boy immediately began to touch Irma while she was talking about mushrooms. The enraged Jono looked sideways at him like a beast, ready to tear him apart. The young man said that he could not study in such conditions. Aya turned to Jono as a young elder. She accepted his conditions, so let him accept hers. Irma was constantly provoked into close contact, so the mushrooms were hard to see. Aya's brother seductively put the fruit he found in Irma's mouth under the guise that she would try it, provoking Jono. Then, without hesitation, he hugged her from behind, cooing in a velvety voice that the aroma of her body was so attractive that he wanted to taste it. Jono restrained himself with all his strength. Irma, moving away from him, politely asked not to allow himself too much. Otherwise, she would not be able to teach. Jono did not allow her to insert any further words, covering her mouth with a kiss, and shouted to his opponent to take his paws off his woman. Then he grabbed her and declared imperiously that she was his. Aya noticed how Ricky was watching this. Standing next to him, she smiled slyly and told him that he was jealous. After all, Jono has a partner and how he defends the rights to her. Then she introduced herself and stated that she liked him. He could become her partner and go with her to the Quay tribe. But he just chuckled and went muttering that he was not interested in the proposal. How could a female not be interested in a male? Aya was indignant, but only if he is not injured. She thought and glanced at Irma. It was quite possible that this male had his eye on her. She analyzed her competitor. What was wrong with her, since men were so hung up on her? Who is she? The further it goes, the stranger it becomes. As usual, being furious, Mia observed from under the bushes why Aya was not doing anything. Why did she surround her with males? Maybe she wants Jono to leave her like that. At this time, Aya's brother approached her and said that he wanted to talk. Mia was happy. They would probably take her to the Quay tribe. But the guy answered guiltily that he had not yet figured out a way to transfer her to his tribe. But he served his sister, so he would quickly solve this problem. His last words became a blow for Mia when she learned that Aya wants to take Irma to her because the tribe needs people like her because they are useful and therefore valuable. Trying to hide the humiliation and insult as indifferently as possible, Mia said that, in principle, this was not so important to her. She needed to go about her business. She was ready to kill anyone who met her now. That damned Irma poured dope into the soup. She pierced the doll with a needle, imagining that it was Irma who wanted her to die. Jacob approached her. He worriedly asked if that guy from the Quay tribe was pestering her, deciding to take advantage of this. She asked him for a favor. The male courted Irma despite her request to keep his distance. He hugged her every now and then under the guise of teaching. Jacob called out to Irma that he wanted to talk to her, thinking what kind of female she was, who first stole Jono and Ricky from Mia, and now is shamelessly coveting other males from another tribe. He tried to hand her a bouquet, citing the fact that he wanted to apologize for Mia. Irma didn't want to take it, but he literally shoved it into her hands. Satisfied, Mia showed this to Sophie, who was sobbing that her beloved was being taken away. Mia slyly told her friend that this Irma was no mistake. She had not only taken away all the males of their tribe, but also had designs on the Quay tribe. So if she had died, then Jacob would have stayed with Sophie. Sophie, crying, repeated Mia's words. Irma will not be there. Jacob will be with her. The first day of training was coming to an end. Irma was tired and did not know how to send away the annoying male of the Quay tribe, who clearly wanted to continue training, but not with mushrooms. She thought that today Jono could not find a place for himself, if this happens next time. Irma did not notice how Sophie approached her with a clearly unfriendly look. She suddenly took out a knife and rushed at Irma. The girl tried to reason with her, asking her to put away the knife, but Sophie advanced. Slashing Irma's hand, she screamed that she shouldn't be there. Blood sprayed from the wound. Irma tried to talk about how she had offended Sophie, what the misunderstanding was between them. Anger and malice clouded the mind of Sophie, who rushed with a knife at Irma, screaming that that damn bitch had decided to seduce her Jacob. She saw how he gave her flowers, and they are given during courtship. Irma fell to the ground, dodging another blow, explaining that he gave her flowers because he wanted to apologize for Mia. She stopped in her tracks and slowly repeated Irma's words on how to apologize for Mia. But a minute later, she was again chasing Irma, shouting that she was lying and Jacob would be hers. Irma ran into the forest, sobbing and holding a bloody knife in her hand. Sophie shouted at her to never return to Osawa. Sitting down on the ground and throwing the knives, she burst into tears, muttering through tears that Mia would not calm down and would not let them live in peace. And Jacob still didn't love her. She just wanted to do what was best. Jono came to Irma and declared from the doorway that he had managed to intercept the loot from a competitor, but no one answered him. She's not there yet. The guy hasn't come yet. The guy was surprised. Concerned, he went out into the yard and saw red droplets on the grass. Sitting down and taking the liquid on his finger, he realized with horror that it was blood. The tribe went out in search of Irma. It was already dark, so they lit torches. Jono was on the verge of a breakdown. His old mother was worried that he would do something stupid. Jono was filled with anger at himself. He did not protect his woman. Ricky tried to calm him down by offering the version that perhaps Irma had found new food, which is why she was delayed. He hit Ricky in the face with all his might. Mia screamed for him to stop. Jono yelled that Irma was pregnant with his children, and God forbid something happened to her. They would both go to the lands of God's punishment and repent to the corrupt God. Mia and Sophie exclaimed when they heard that Irma was pregnant. Sophie cried, saying that she had harmed the cub. She had no right to live. Mia, with feigned concern, took her hand and replied that Irma had no right to live. She lured Sophie's male and took her guys away, so that she did everything right. She would not tell anyone that she killed Irma. Irma walked in the dark through the forest of animals. It was huge, and she could not find a way out to the tribe. The wound on her arm was bleeding heavily. She could no longer walk. She needed to rest and bandage the wound. Irma was bandaging the wound with the help of her built-in equipment. The creature was watching her, thinking about how a pregnant female with triplets could come to such a forest alone. She's probably lost her male. Now she'll start crying. How annoying that is. The wolf rushed at Irma, growling and grinning, intending to tear her apart on the spot. Irma slashed the beast with her metal knife. She understood that her blood would attract new predators. The creature was watching Irma with some interest as to why she wasn't crying. Irma tried to drive away the wolf with a knife, thinking that this was really how her life would end. The creature covered the girl and threw the wolf away with its huge, snake-like, scaly tail, growling as it dared to rush at its prey. Irma stared wide-eyed at the defender, who casually asked over his shoulder if she was okay. Wow, the huge snake's tail shimmered with a silvery glow in the dusk. She was able to utter only the word snake. The creature looked at her with condescension, wrapping its mighty tail around her. What else can you expect from trappers? He thought, looking at her. He was about to leave, and when he turned his back, Irma saw that he was wounded. She remembered how he hugged her, declaring that she was his prey. Irma stopped the strange defender. He threw what she wanted. His snake eyes began to whine with some surprise as to what else this female needed. The girl asked permission to bandage his wound, but he refused to do so. Words won't do that. She confidently grabbed his hand, stopping him. She said that she wanted to thank him, so let her sit down and do everything now. Irma was bandaging his wound. He watched silently and thought to himself that she was pretending. He didn't say a word while Irma puffed and knitted with a bandage. Finally, he loudly asked Irma why she was bandaging the wound if she was so afraid of him. Irma was really afraid of his unusual appearance. She timidly asked if he was also a trapper. He answered, "But doesn't she know? There are rumors that trappers are born sinners, and therefore were punished by the god beast, so some parts of their bodies changed. They committed atrocities, created tyranny, so all this was imprinted on the bones. But suddenly, a legendary trapper appeared. Irma sincerely replied that she really didn't know anything, so she asked the trapper if he was. He turned away and condescendingly replied that everything was clear, giving advice not to approach the fallen trapper. It's not difficult to distinguish them. They have a crystal in their forehead. The next time he sees one like that, let him run away. It began to dawn on her. Then the girl replied that the trappers are not evil, and this crystal is very beautiful. You can't judge someone by their appearance. He saved her, so he's a good and decent trapper. He breathed out and said that she was complicating everything. She was a woman who needed to be returned to the tribe and allowed to give birth. Irma did not lag behind, so why did he save her when he saw that there was danger? The stranger snorted and said that it was simply because she was pregnant. Then the girl replied that she saw in him a noble warrior who saves women, and not at all some despicable trapper. The guy burst into tears inside. He never thought that the female would call him a noble warrior. Irma extended her hand with a smile and stated that since they had resolved the misunderstanding, she wanted to introduce herself. She is Irma from the Osawa tribe, and what is his name? The guy did not answer the handshake, turned away so as not to show his excitement, and introduced himself as Reich. They came to a cave where the meat lay. Irma asked if this was all his food. He thought, she's the most delicate person. Now she'll be disappointed. Of course she won't like a trapper like him. Irma said his name, thinking and analyzing something. Then she said that let her teach him how to store food, saying this so sincerely with a desire to help. He calmly asked how to do this, and Irma, taking his hand in a businesslike tone, began to explain. Reich was surprised by her revelation, because these are the secrets of the tribe, and there is a punishment for disclosure. To which Irma replied that he is not a stranger, but her savior, especially since she does not believe that the fallen trappers are unworthy of knowing them. This touched Reich very much, and he also decided to open up to Irma. He said that he came to the Forest of Animals for a reason. He found salt deposits here. Cool. Irma jumped for joy, which means now he can salt a lot of meat for himself. He affectionately stroked the girl's head and said, she shared precious knowledge with him, and he is ready to share with her. Jono and Ricky called Irma while walking with torches through the dark forest. Suddenly, Ricky put his finger to his lips and looked at his friend. Someone was approaching them. When suddenly they encountered the fallen, who were carrying huge barrels. The guys said that they didn't come to quarrel. They lost the female. They've been looking for her all night if they know where she is. Let them tell him. The fallen looked at each other without answering. Within a couple of seconds, they rushed at the trappers with their weapons. Dodging the attack, Jono shouted that if they entered into battle now, other fallen ones would come running. They needed to get out. Ricky began to roar while looking at the fallen, and a phantom began to separate from his body. And the giant rushed at the fallen with a menacing growl. The roar was deafening. The fallen fell to the ground in horror. Jono realized that Ricky had mental magic. While the enemies were lying on the ground, Ricky shouted that he needed to leave before the phantom dissipated. They turned and soared upward. Having flown to a safe place, the guys were able to rest. The fallen would not find them here. Jono noticed that some grains were shimmering on Ricky's hand. They sparkled in the dusk of the night. Ricky tried the crumbles with his tongue and exclaimed, "This is salt." They went to the elder and reported to her that there was salt in the forest of animals. The guys said that the fallen found it and secretly mined it. The elder thought about it, and Jono immediately imagined Irma alone in the forest. And if she had already met the fallen, terrible pictures appeared before his eyes. He stood up and, without listening to anyone, resolutely went to continue the search for Irma. Ricky decided to go with his friend, telling the elder to tell everyone about the fallen trappers. The elder prayed to the beast god that Irma would be found alive and well as soon as possible. The tribe gathered in the square where the headman spoke about the fallen. Everyone was horrified. The headman said not to go out unnecessarily, not to fight off the group while hunting, and her thoughts were occupied with ensuring that the Quay tribe, which was still here, did not find out about the salt deposits. Sophie was beside herself with fear. She had heard that the fallen were so cruel that the males were killed, and the females were forced to give birth to many children. Standing behind Mia's house, Sophie worried about Irma, what to do, and if she was captured by the fallen. Mia answered indifferently, "What do they care about her? Well, they'll grab her, so she's out of luck." Sophie was shaking with horror. She wounded her and drove her into the forest. What had she done? She remembered how Mia deceived her by deceiving her that Jacob was supposedly caring for Irma. She realized that she got rid of her competitor with her hands. Sophie told Mia that she deceived her and forced her to expel Irma by saying that Jacob was making advances towards her. She grinned smugly and stated that she was only expressing her opinion. Is this considered deception? So there is no need to shift the blame onto her. Sophie screamed hysterically that it was not her fault. It was Mia who said that if Irma left the tribe, Jacob would love her. Accusing each other, they did not notice how a crowd led by an elder stood behind them and heard everything. She angrily said that she did not expect this from them. Sophie follows Mia's orders, and with her manipulations, she forced the pregnant female to run away into the forest. Sophie said that Irma was now alone in the forest with the fallen because of her. The girl tried to deny it. The elder punished Sophie. According to the laws of the tribe, she must give birth to 10 cubs for disabled males who could not find a mate. Then she turned to Mia. She forced Sophie to commit a crime, but she, without listening to the headman, denied that it was all Sophie's fault. She really wanted to marry Jacob. The headman became furious. She doesn't even repent, since she insists on her innocence. Then let the god-beast judge her. Mia will go to the land of God's punishment. She screamed in horror into the land of God's punishment, but this was certain death. In the morning, Reich asked one of his fellow tribesmen if he had come across any trappers. He confirmed that yesterday at night, the porters met trappers who were looking for the female. Reich wondered if they were probably looking for Irma. A sleepy Irma appeared behind him, stretching and asking him why he got up so early. The female screamed in horror when she saw her. Reich asked why she woke up so early, because pregnancy takes a lot of energy. Irma replied that it was just the first time she spent the night on the street and could not get enough sleep. Reich's tribesmen could not understand anything about what the female trapper was doing to the leader and how he cared about her so much. The guy thought that she was his female and asked the head what he was hiding from them, calling Irma mistress. Irma explained that this is not what he thinks about. It's just that last night Reich saved her from a wild beast. Reich gave the order for everyone to stay home and for the miners to bring as much salt as possible. As he left, the young man thought why the head reacted so sharply and what the female was doing so late at night in the forest. It dawned on him that those 2 trappers were looking for her. Reich fried meat for breakfast and asked Irma why she was wandering in the forest alone and so late. Irma sighed and began to tell how it all happened. Reich got excited and shouted who had harmed her. At first he thought it was a male, then he found out that it was a female. Irma sadly said that she did not think that everything would go so far. Handing the girl her breakfast, he invited her to stay in his tribe, promising that they would never hurt her. But she refused because the tribe treats her well. There was just a misunderstanding. In addition, she remembered Jono and their home, the family they were going to build. Reich asked if her partner was offending her, but Irma shook her head. No, Jono is wonderful. When no one believed her, he alone took her side and supported her in everything. She remembered how they collected food. The guy completely trusted her, did not doubt her, did not ridicule her ideas. Although he can be naive and jealous at times, this makes him cute. Reich felt somehow painful. He turned away and asked Irma how he could allow this to happen. Irma explained that no one expected this, and Jono was hunting. Irma's words about her male made Reich experience strange feelings. What's wrong with him? Why is it unpleasant for him when Irma talks about her partner? Does he like her, or are these just animal instincts? He glanced sideways at Irma, who was chewing meat. In such a short time, he had become attached to her. The girl stood up, saying that she had eaten. Now she needed to determine the direction from where she came. Reich remembered that yesterday he promised to take her to the tribe. Irma said that it was dark, and she didn't remember where she came from. And Reich looked at her and thought whether he would regret letting her go. Coming out of the cave, Irma looked around, trying to understand where she had come from. Suddenly, Reich took her hand, looking into her eyes. He apologized, but said that he could not return her to the tribe. Irma asked why. He replied that it had been reported that something was wrong with the salt deposits. He should check. Holding her hands, he gently asked if she could go with him. The girl lowered her head, not knowing what to answer. Reich reminded her about the food she was talking about. He blushed and added that he was not sure that he remembered everything correctly. Irma also stood embarrassedly with her eyes downcast, and she herself thought that he was right. In words, it is difficult to remember how to cook everything correctly, how to distinguish mushrooms. But the guy couldn't hold her back and said that he shouldn't let it get into his head. He'll learn with experience. He turned away so as not to show his melancholy and said that he would take her home. Her hand took his hand, and he heard her say that she would stay with him for now.